He looked between me and Adrian, eyes wide. The silence in the hospital room was thick enough to suffocate. Every eye was glued to my father, Michael, the man who'd never shown an ounce of vulnerability in his life. As he stared at the loose pages clutched in his trembling hands, his jaw went slack, the red rage draining from his face to leave a sickly ashen hue. Adrian, still hooked to the heart monitor, forgot to breathe. The machine's steady beep spiked into a rapid, panicked rhythm. Monica's gasp was sharp enough to cut through the hush. And Sarah, her cheeks still pink from my slap, stepped back, a flicker of terror crossing her features that she quickly masked with a frown of confusion. "Dad." My voice came out hoarse, edged with a panic I didn't want to acknowledge. I'd spent weeks steeling myself for this divorce, for the family's backlash, but I'd never planned for this, for whatever was on those pages, to break my father's unbreakable composure. "What is it?" He didn't answer. He just turned the pages slowly, his fingers brushing over the words like they might burn him. Once, twice, he read them again, as if hoping the second pass would rewrite the truth. When he finally looked up, his eyes weren't on me. We were on Adrian. And there was something in that gaze, something cold, something betrayed, that made Adrian shrink back into the hospital bed. "Adrian, my father," said, his voice low and gravelly, like he was forcing the name out through a throat full of glass. "Explain this." Adrian's lips parted, but no sound came out. His face paled to match the hospital sheets, and he fumbled for the heart monitor leads, as if adjusting them would somehow erase the evidence in my father's hands. Monica was the first to recover, her maternal instinct overriding her shock. She stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the linoleum. "Michael, whatever it is, it's a mistake. Adrian's been stressed half to death. He doesn't know what he's writing right now. Let's just shut up." "Monica." My father's tone was icy, and for the first time in my life, I saw her flinch. He held up the pages, his hands still shaking, and his eyes swept the room, taking in every single person present. "These aren't just notes. These are bank statements, receipts, a list of transactions that would make a con artist blush." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Adrian's co-workers exchanged confused glances. Peter, the one who'd called me a gold digger, leaned in, craning his neck to get a better look. My mother, who'd been quiet since the slapping incident, stepped forward, her voice tentative. "Michael, what are you talking about?" "Those papers were clipped to the divorce forms." "Raylan, did you put them there?" I didn't answer. I just stood there, my heart hammering against my ribs, as the pieces of the puzzle I'd been assembling for months finally clicked into place. I'd known something was off for a long time. Adrian's late nights, his evasive answers about where he was, the way his phone always died right when I tried to call him. But I'd never had proof, not until last week, when I'd stumbled on a hidden folder in his laptop, while he was in the shower, a folder full of lies. "Raylan didn't put them there," my father said, his gaze never leaving Adrian's face. "Adrian did accidentally, I'm sure, because he's been too busy covering his tracks to notice. He'd stuffed them in with the divorce papers Raylan gave him earlier." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice dropped to a whisper that cut through the room like a knife. "Tell them, Adrian, tell them how you've been siphoning money from Raylan's business account for the past 2 years." The room exploded. Monica let out a shriek that could curdle milk. Donald, who'd been quiet up until now, stepped forward, his face purple with rage. "That's a lie. My son would never." "Is it?" My father tossed the pages onto the hospital bed, and they fluttered open, revealing a trail of deposits and withdrawals. That made my stomach turn. $50, no, no. 0 transferred to a private account last month. $20, no, no. 0 the month before that. All from Raylan's business. The business she built from the ground up. While you all sat around calling her a workaholic." He pointed a finger at Adrian, his hand trembling with fury. "And where did the money go?" "Adrian, let me guess. The supplements you bought. Or was it the beach house you've been renting in Malibu? The one you take Sarah to every weekend, while Raylan's out of town on work trips?" Sarah's face turned white as a sheet. She stumbled back, tripping over a nurse's cart, and knocked over a stack of medical records. "That's not true. I've never saved it, Sarah." My father's voice was cold. "The receipts are right there. Hotel bills, restaurant tabs, plane tickets for 2, all paid for with Raylan's money." He turned to me, and for the first time since I'd walked into the hospital room, his eyes softened. "You knew, didn't you? That's why you wanted the divorce. Not over the rewards card. Over this." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The rewards card had just been the final straw, the cherry on top of a Sunday of lies and betrayal. I'd gone to the drugstore that afternoon before my work trip ended to pick up a prescription, And the cashier had told me my rewards card was maxed out, not declined, maxed out on $300 worth of vitamins and $1.50 bottle of designer cologne and $200 gift card to a lingerie store. All purchased that afternoon while I was on a plane back home. All purchased by Adrian, who'd used my card without my permission again. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I'd known deep down that the vitamins were a lie. Adrian's heart was fine. He had a full physical 6 months ago, and the doctor had given him a clean bill of health. The heart problems were just an excuse to siphon more money from me, to play the victim, to make me feel guilty for working too much. I'd had enough. Adrian finally found his voice, and it was a whimper. Babe, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. I was just borrowing the money. I was going to pay it back. I swear. Borrowing. I laughed, and the sound was sharp and bitter. You borrowed $100 to 000 from my business account without telling me. And you spent it on beach houses and lingerie and cologne. That's not borrowing, Adrian. That's theft. Monica was crying now, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. She clung to Donald's arm, her body shaking. This is a misunderstanding. Adrian would never steal from you, Raylan. He loves you, love. I looked at her, and my voice was cold. Love is not stealing from your wife. Love is not lying to her. Love is not cheating on her with her sister-in-law. The room went dead silent. Sarah's mouth dropped open. She stared at me, her eyes wide with terror. I never cheated on you with him. That's a lie, is it? I pulled my phone out of my pocket and pulled up a photo, one I'd taken 2 weeks ago, from the window of my hotel room in New York. A photo of Adrian and Sarah, kissing on the balcony of the Malibu beach house, their arms wrapped around each other. I held it up so everyone could see. I was supposed to be gone for 3 days, but I came home early, and this is what I found. Adrian's face crumpled. He buried his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Raylan. I didn't mean for it to happen. Sarah was there, and I was lonely and lonely. I cut him off, my voice rising. You were lonely. While I was working my ass off to keep our business afloat, while I was traveling across the country, to make sure we could pay our bills, while I was loving you, even when you were too busy working late to spend time with me. I shook my head, my eyes burning with tears I refused to shed. I don't want your apology. I want a divorce, and I want my money back. My father stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. His touch was warm, reassuring. The first kind touch anyone had given me all day. She's not finished, he said, his voice firm. The papers also show that you've been forging Raylan's signature on business documents. That's fraud, Adrian. Felony fraud. And if you don't give her every penny back, I'll make sure you spend the next 10 years in jail. Adrian paled. He looked at my father, his eyes wide with fear. You wouldn't. Your family. Family doesn't steal from each other. My father said. Family doesn't lie to each other. Family doesn't cheat on each other. You lost your right to call us family the day you put your hands on Raylan's bank account. Donald and Monica were silent now, their faces blank with shock. They looked at Adrian, then at Sarah, then at me, and for the first time, I saw the truth in their eyes. They'd known. They'd known Adrian was up to something, that he was lying, that he was cheating. I just turned a blind eye because he was their son, because they'd always thought I was the lucky one, marrying into their perfect family. I laughed again, and this time it was a sound of pure relief. I'd spent 5 years of my life trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect daughter-in-law, the perfect everything. I'd bend over backward to make them happy, to make Adrian happy, even when it meant neglecting myself. But it had all been for nothing, because they'd never seen me as family. They'd never seen me as anything more than a paycheck. I picked up the divorce papers from the bed, ignoring the way Adrian was sobbing. I signed my name at the bottom of my hand, steady for the first time all day, and I handed them to Betty, who just walked into the room, her briefcase in hand. File these, I said, and sue him for every penny he stole. I want it all back. Betty nodded, her face grim. Consider it done. I turned to my parents, who were watching me with a mixture of guilt and regret. My father opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, stopping him. I don't want an apology, I said. I just want you to leave me alone. From now on, it's just me. I don't need any of you. The walk from Adrian's hospital room to the elevator felt like a funeral march, but for the first time in years, I wasn't the one in the casket. The corridor was quiet. My heels, usually a sound that commanded respect in boardrooms, struck the linoleum with a dull, final thud. Behind me, the chaos was muffled by the heavy fire doors, but I could still feel the vibration of it. Monica's wailing, Donald's confused shouting, and the pathetic, hiccuping sobs of the man I had vowed to love until death parted us. Well, Death hadn't come. Just the death of my patience. Raylan. Wait. The voice wasn't Adrian's. It was my father's. Michael. I stopped but didn't turn. I pressed the elevator call button, watching the numbers descend. I told you, Dad. I don't want an apology. I'm not apologizing, he said, stepping up beside me. He looked older under the harsh fluorescent lights. The rage that had animated him in the room was gone, replaced by his usual stoic armor. I'm offering a ride. You took an Uber here from the airport. I'll take one back. Raylan, don't be a martyr. It doesn't suit you. He adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous tick I hadn't seen since I was a child. You have the files? Betty has them. Good. Betty is a shark. But she's expensive. I'll cover the retainer. I finally looked at him. I don't need your money. Clearly, I have plenty of my own, considering how much Adrian managed to steal without me going bankrupt. The elevator dinged. The door slid open, revealing an empty car. I stepped in. Michael put his hand against the door to stop it from closing. You think I enjoyed that? He asked quietly. Reading those bank statements? I think you enjoyed being right, I said, my voice flat. You never liked him. Today was just your vindication. You didn't defend me because I'm your daughter, Michael. You defended me because someone touched family assets. His jaw tightened. Is there a difference? Yes, I whispered, hitting the lobby button. If you don't know the difference, that's exactly why I'm walking away from you too. I removed his hand from the sensor. The door slid shut, sealing me in a metal box of silence. I leaned my forehead against the cool steel and finally, just for a moment, let myself shake. The next 3 weeks were a blur of red tape and black coffee. I didn't go back to the house I shared with Adrian. I stayed at a boutique hotel downtown, one with high security and a concierge who knew not to let anyone named Adrian, Monica, or Sarah pass the lobby. Betty was true to her reputation. She didn't just file for divorce, she launched a scorched earth campaign. We froze everything. Joint accounts, credit cards, even the agonizingly small savings account Monica had set up for Adrian in case of emergencies. On a rainy Tuesday, Betty called me into her office. The mahogany table was covered in stacks of paper. It's worse than we thought, Raylan, Betty said, not looking up from a spreadsheet. I sat down, pulling my coat tight around me. How much? The initial statements showed $150,000. That was just the transfer to the private account, Betty said, sliding a binder toward me. That was the clumsy stuff. The stuff he did when he got arrogant. But we dug into the credit lines he opened in your name using the power of attorney you signed 3 years ago for the house purchase. I opened the binder. Crypto schemes. Online gambling debts. A shell company called ANS Holdings, Adrian and Sarah, that had put a down payment on a condo in downtown Seattle, not just the Malibu rental. Total. I asked, bracing myself. $420,000, Betty said. And change. The number hit me like a physical blow. That was my profit margin for the last 3 years. That was the expansion capital for the new branch. He bet against your company, too, Betty added softly. I looked up sharply. What? He shorted your stock, she said, tapping a page. Through a broker friend of Peter's. He was betting on you to fail, Raylan. He was stealing your working capital to make the business unstable, and then betting on the collapse. The room spun. It wasn't just greed. It was malice. Adrian didn't just want my money. He wanted me small. He wanted me to fail so he could be the one to comfort me, the big, strong husband picking up the pieces of his broken wife. Where is he now? I asked. Staying with Monica and Donald. They've mortgaged their house to pay for his defense attorney. Betty smirked. They hired Slideshow Bob, a strip mall lawyer. They can't afford anyone who can go toe-to-toe with me. And Sarah? Betty's smile turned predatory. That's the interesting part. You see, Peter, the one who called you a gold digger? He found out. Apparently, Sarah wasn't as careful with her cloud backups as she should have been. What happened? Peter kicked her out. She's currently living in that Malibu rental, racking up a bill she can't pay because we froze the card she was using. The landlord is evicting her on Friday. I leaned back in the leather chair. A strange, cold calm settled over me. Betty, I said. I wanted to pose them. Both of them. Together. That's unusual for a divorce hearing. I don't care. Make it happen. I want to look them in the eye when they realize they've lost. The conference room was sterile, smelling of lemon polish and fear. Adrian sat on the left side of the long table, looking like a man who had aged 10 years in a month. His suit, one I had bought him, hung loosely on his frame. He wouldn't look at me. Sarah sat 2 chairs down. She looked haggard. Her roots were showing, and she wore a frantic, deer-in-headlights expression. Across from them sat me, Betty, and a court reporter whose typing sounded like gunfire. Mr. Vance, Betty began, addressing Adrian. Let's discuss the withdrawal on November 14th. The sum of $12,000. I needed it for medical expenses, Adrian stammered. My heart. We have your medical records, Adrian, Betty cut in, bored. Your heart is stronger than mine. The $12,000 went to a clinic in Mexico. Sarah flinched. Was it for a heart procedure, Mr. Vance? Yes, he lied. Strange, Betty said, sliding a photo across the table. Because this receipt from the Clinica Estetica lists a liposuction procedure and a breast augmentation. For a patient named Sarah Vance. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. I watched Sarah. She squeezed her eyes shut. You used my client's money to buy your mistress new tits? Betty asked, her voice dropping to a conversational volume that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. We were going to pay it back. Sarah burst out, her voice shrill. Peter cut me off. I needed to look good for my modeling portfolio, so I could get work. Modeling, I said. It was the first time I'd spoken. Sarah snapped her head toward me. You don't understand, Raylan. You have everything handed to you. You have the business, the money. We have nothing. I built that business, I said, my voice steady. I worked 18-hour days while you were posting brunch photos on Instagram, Sarah. And you, Adrian. You watched me come home exhausted, crying from stress, and you went into my wallet and took what I bled for. I felt emasculated. Adrian shouted, slamming his hand on the table. He finally looked at me, his eyes wet and red. You and your dad, always making me feel like a charity case. I wanted to build something of my own. ANS Holdings was going to be big. By stealing from your wife. It was a loan. It was a crime, Betty corrected. And here's the reality, Adrian. Raylan isn't just suing for divorce. We have forwarded these files to the district attorney. Adrian's face went white. What? Embezzlement. Wide fraud. Identity theft. Betty ticked them off on her fingers. You aren't just losing the house, sweetie. You're looking at 5 to 10 years in state prison. Adrian looked at his lawyer, the strip mall guy, who was frantically shuffling papers and looking pale. You can't do that, Adrian whispered to me. I'm your husband. You can't send me to jail. You lost the right to that title when you shorted my stock, I said. You wanted me to fail? Congratulations, Adrian. I'm the only thing that was keeping you afloat. Now I'm cutting the line. Raylan, please, he sobbed, sliding out of his chair to his knees. It was a pathetic echo of the man I thought I'd married. I'll do anything. I'll sign the papers. I'll give up rights to everything. Just don't let them arrest me. I looked down at him. I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just a profound sense of waste. You'll sign everything, I said. You will assume all the debt. You will pay my legal fees. And you will confess on video to Peter about exactly what you did. Peter? Sarah gasped. No, he'll kill me. He deserves to know exactly who he was married to, I said. Just like I did. The fallout was swift and brutal. Adrian signed the settlement. He walked away with nothing but his clothes and a 2014 Honda Civic that was in his own name. Monica and Donald tried to intervene, sending me hateful emails about how I was ruining a good man, until my father stepped in. I don't know exactly what Michael said to Donald, but the email stopped. I suspect he reminded Donald that his own small business relied heavily on contracts from my father's firm. Financial leverage is a language they all understood perfectly. 2 weeks after the deposition, I was in my office, finally looking at a balance sheet that made sense. The bleeding had stopped. My receptionist buzzed me. Raylan, there's a Peter here to see you. Send him in. Peter walked in. The last time I'd seen him, at a family barbecue, he'd sneered at my Prada bag and made a joke about me marrying Adrian for his potential because I clearly only cared about status. Now, he looked broken. He was holding a manila envelope. Raylan, he said, not sitting down. Peter. I got the video, he said. The confession. Good. He hesitated, shifting his weight. I owe you an apology. A big one. I called you a gold digger. I told everyone you were the problem. He let out a harsh, dry laugh. Turns out I was sleeping next to the parasite. You didn't know, I said. Manipulators are good at what they do. She's pregnant, Peter said abruptly. I froze. What? Sarah. She's pregnant. She says it's mine. But considering the timeline, he gestured to the envelope. I'm doing a paternity test. If it's Adrian's, he can't pay child support, I said coldly. He's working specifically to pay me back restitution. Betty garnishes his wages before he even sees them. He's working at a warehouse, Peter said. Monica kicked him out after the police came to their house to question him about the fraud. They couldn't handle the shame in the neighborhood. Where is he living? A motel on Route 9. Sarah is there with him. I turn my chair to look out the window at the skyline. Poetic justice. I just came to say, Peter put the envelope on my desk. I found this in Sarah's things. It belongs to you. I opened the envelope. Inside was a diamond tennis bracelet. My grandmother's bracelet. I had thought I lost it a year ago. I had torn the house apart looking for it, crying for days. Adrian had held me, comforting me, telling me I must have left it at a hotel. He had stolen it. He had given it to Sarah. The rage flared, hot and bright, but then extinguished. I held the cold diamonds in my hand. "Thank you, Peter," I said. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow," he said. "If you need a witness for the criminal trial, call me." 6 months later. The criminal trial didn't happen. Adrian took a plea deal. 3 years probation, massive restitution, and a permanent felony record that barred him from working in finance or management ever again. I was sitting at a cafe in Paris. I had taken the trip alone. No work, no laptop, just me and a sketchbook. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Betty. Final payment from the garnish received. It's not much, $400, but it's consistent. Also, heard through the grapevine. Sarah had the baby. It's Adrian's. They're living in a trailer on Donald's property. Donald won't let them in the main house. I put the phone down. Is this seat taken? I looked up. A man was standing there. He wasn't my type. He was too handsome, too polished, but he had kind eyes. "That depends," I said. "Are you looking for a bank account or a conversation?" He blinked, then laughed. "Just a coffee companion. I hate drinking espresso alone." "Sit," I said. As he pulled out the chair, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my father. Saw the quarterly reports. "You're up 20%. Good work, Raylan. I'm proud of you. Let's get dinner when you're back." My treat. No business talk. I stared at the screen. No business talk. It was the closest Michael would ever get to saying I love you. I typed back. "Steakhouse. You're paying." I put the phone in my bag and zipped it shut. I took a sip of my wine, feeling the Parisian sun on my face. The air tasted sweet. It tasted like freedom. I had lost a husband, a sister-in-law, and a false sense of security. But I had regained my business, my self-respect, and the absolute certainty that I could survive anything. I looked at the stranger across the table. "So," I said, smiling for real for the first time in a long time. "Tell me your story. And don't lie. I have a very good lawyer."